morning. It's Friday. Finally, it's Friday, March 27, 2015. Stock futures are pulling back yet again. We started the week up here, and we're looking to end the week, hopefully, off the low that we hit yesterday in the overnight session when the European markets opened for trade. You can see the decline we had. We recovered that, and just before the close, we rallied sharply, but it pulled back. Overnight, got back to that level, just almost precisely to the highs of during the trading session yesterday, and it pulled back. The European market open for trade. We pulled back again. We're getting a bounce. We see if this bounce is something more constructive. Is this a higher low? We have the low here back on Thursday in the overnight session. We have the low here in the overnight session. We'll see if we're putting in some sort of a bottoming process here after a really nasty pullback. I mean, there were days we went, weeks and months we went without having 2 consecutive down days. To have 4 straight days during the week where the market falls is pretty much unheard of, at least over the last couple trading years. So we'll see if the market can rebound. You know, it's getting pretty oversold. And we have the U.S. dollar index pulling back. I talked about this as, you know, an excuse for stocks to rally. The U.S. dollar index has been falling with stocks. You can see it started the week at much higher levels, almost 99.43. You see Federal Reserve last week, the meeting, talked down the U.S. dollar, actually flash crashed after the bell, recovered. But I'm looking for support here about the 95.50 level. We're not quite there yet. We've got a bit more room to go before we find support. I think that's going to put a bit under stocks. Crude oil is falling, was up, 4% yesterday. Big rally. You can see the move up. It's pulling back a little bit, about 1%. We'll keep an eye on that. Also, look at the bond market. 30-year Treasury bond futures are up 0.6%. So we're seeing quantitative easing over in Germany. And the Eurozone continuing to keep a bid under the bond market here. So let's look at the S&P 500 ETF, the spiders. Certainly from a trend line perspective, we are at a key juncture here. And you can see we're actually a little bit oversold. And, you know, historically, every time we get oversold here for the S&P 500, we see a nice bounce, especially in a longer term perspective here. You pull back, this trend line started back in 2012. You can see it's been respected pretty well. We had the Abenomics trend line that was broken recently. This one goes farther back, and we're certainly looking at a very important line to hold. We broke it in October. We've had some sharp reversals, but we could see continued selling here. So something to keep an eye on. Also, we'll look at the QQQ. I talked about this trend line here as acting as support. We're not there yet. We see the big sell-off we had on Wednesday. Thursday was kind of an indecisive day. So, you know, this is certainly not out of the question. We could see continued weakness. Also, the small caps, that 120 level is key as well as we pull back. The other thing to watch for, if we do hit this 120 and bounce, we could be putting in some sort of a head and shoulders topping pattern. My goodness, the media will have a field day with that. Something to keep an eye on. The best case scenario for the bulls, obviously, after 4 straight down days for the S&P 500, would be a sharp rally here to kind of negate some of the oversold conditions and get everybody back geared towards the fact that this market continues to trade to the upside, because if you look from a long-term perspective since the lows in March 2009, that is exactly precisely what it has done. And the IWM, I mean, sure, we have this candle here that looks a little thin, you know, could use a little meat, especially on the top side. It'll be a nice little hammer there, but you can see the trend remains firmly up. And if you're trading against it 4 straight down days, it's certainly not the norm. More often than not, over the last 5 years, when we get 4 consecutive down days, well, that chart looks pretty impressive. I meant to put Apple in. Let's look at Apple real quick. AAP, look at that one. I'll take off the drawings and I'll just show you same thing here with Apple, that we're consolidating. And if I get it closer in from the 2-year chart, I brought this up yesterday, that we're just putting in another beautiful consolidation pattern as we have throughout the rally since the low in May of 2013, when everybody was writing Apple off. And here we are. I think an upgrade came out either today or yesterday, price target. You know, we're looking at 160, 170 targets, 185. I'm sure there's some over 200. I haven't looked. But anyway, higher prices. Of course, they were upgrading BlackBerry over $100, 150, 160 back in the day. But BlackBerry and Apple are literally apples and oranges. Or apples and moldy oranges. I don't know. Let's look at Home Depot, because after the bell yesterday, a little bit of news about stock buyback. And, you know, I think that continues to fuel this stock, the fact that there's less supply of it. The company's doing halfway decent. And when investors are looking for something that's growing and there's less of it, they scramble to buy it. You can see since March 2009, I mean, my goodness, the thing was at $20. Now it's at 100, what was it, 117.90 is the high. And I just like this gap fill that it did recently. pulling back to support here from the gap fill, and I'm looking for just a bounce. Hey, you know what? I'm not saying I love Home Depot. When you're trading short-term time to expiration options, you're looking for that move to happen pronto, which is why I'm getting continually frustrated with Solar City. That $50 level is so key, especially the last couple trading days. You can see the $50 trying to make up its mind. It does briefly, then pulls back, gets below it. So, I think today, again, is another important day for the S&P 500, also for Solar City, really start to take off, or it's going to pull back to support at 47. Let's look at some other stocks that have been kind of frustrated with this week. DDD, Triple D, at support again, trying to make up its mind. Collapsed below it. I mean, there was some wicked candle yesterday, but recovered off of it. Look at that candle to the downside. Came all the way back, was actually up about 0.5% late in the trading day yesterday before pulling back and closing modestly. I think it was flat. Maybe it was just with a small loss, but certainly this is a stock I'm in options that expire today, so that would mean it's going to probably trade flat today. And then on Monday, it's going to be up 5-7%. Like GoPro, my options last week did pretty well. Had I moved out to this week, would have done even better. GoPro continues to see positive analyst remarks this week after I talked about it bottoming last week, starting to work its way up, and I'm looking for some sort of an explosive movement. We're almost at that $45 level I highlighted when it was in the 30s. Now I think it's going to continue to the upside. We're going to see a nice parabolic short squeeze spike over 50, and that'll probably happen sometime next week. Hopefully I'll be able to position in some calls. I'm looking at Amazon also. Citigroup came out today, upgraded the stock, and I love this pattern here of the spike up from its earnings, consolidation, almost some sort of a bull flag, and looking for new record highs. Coming in the short term, I think it's going to happen. I think we're going to go back over $400 soon. Here we are. So we'll see. We had this nice bottoming off support here. And now look at this candle, flag, boom, over $400. And I think today might be a really good day to get into some lotto calls. I'll probably try and get a couple this morning at the open if the thing opens flat. Come on, baby. Open flat for me. Yahoo announced a giant buyback. Back. You see, it was in a channel once it hit its not record highs. I shouldn't say record highs, but multi-year high. And it's pulled back to the bottom of the channel again. Looks ready to blast above it. $2 billion of stock buyback. Doesn't matter what you do these days. It matters how much of your own stock you're buying. Tom Wrigley said it on Twitter yesterday with Home Depot announcing an accelerated repo plan. I love that. Change it from stock buyback to a repo plan. I love it. That is just a great line. We can look at SSYS also. If you don't like Triple D, diners, drive-ins, and 3D stocks, you can look at SSYS also at support here. A lot of people, I know JB, he's not trading the 3D stocks, but if he was, he'd be trading this one. He likes this one much better than DDD. I don't know. I like DDD better for some reason. Maybe because it's the diners, drive-ins, and dives. Zillow also. Look at Zillow at $100 support here. I was in the calls. I still am. I would say I'm saying it in past tense because there's no bid on them. And more than likely, they will just expire. Worthless, and the person who sold them to me will be eating dinner on me and maybe a hotel and whoever knows, whatever else. So look at Zillow here at support. And so I'm in the call contracts. Expect, again, Monday morning, giant spike up to 140 for absolutely no reason other than to laugh. I could hear the laughing on Monday. They'll just turn and, you moron. It's just one of those weeks, man. It's been great up until the last couple trading sessions. We get this pullback. I was positioned in calls. They were doing great even in the pullback to start of the week, and now the whole market's starting to melt lower. I'm melting. But again, I'm only in a couple different stocks. I'm not, I'm keeping my risk to a minimum, so I'm not too disappointed yet. But it'll be frustrating if Monday, all of these stocks that I'm in call contracts in just go ballistic. And you can look Twitter here. I talked about Twitter at the start of the year. Look at this trend line support. Acted beautifully at the start of the year. It was $36. This beautiful flagging pattern. Talked about it flapping in the breeze in my market video when it was at $46. I was in the call contracts last week. Worked out well. Again, GoPro and Twitter. Wish I would have moved out to this week. Continuing to the upside. I know JB had some for the move up over $50 earlier this week. He made a nice profit on it. Let's look at a couple other things here. The VXX, which despite, look at this chart. Yeah, honey, I just went double nuts long, remortgaged the house. I hear the VXX is supposed to rocket higher as the Federal Reserve runs out of bullets, and that was back in 2010. Anyway, he's now bagging your groceries at the nearest grocery chain. Not that that's a bad job, Let's look at the VXX here. Even yesterday was up to $27 level, but kind of muted. You know, I was talking about this last week heading into the Federal Reserve. Even despite the pullbacks that we've been seeing, the VIX hasn't really responded. Well, yesterday had a nice spike to the upside, but again, whacked down. And even the late day selling did not bring much risk appetite in. So we'll see what happens here with the VIX. If you look, to me, it's still got room to go to the downside. If you draw a trend line across, draw the trend line from starting up at the highs that we saw last year in October, bring it down, 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 down. We kind of hit trend line. Let me just see if I can, let me get a tool up there, and then we're going to call it a day. Everybody have a great weekend. Wow, you know, the week went fast, but, you know, certainly interesting. Look at this trend line. And we're close. All right. Well, it looked more, more perfectly aligned. Maybe my eyes were a little off. Maybe too much coffee shaking. But if you look, we come up to this 18, and we're going to pull back as we have in the past. And then also, if you look, you can draw a trend line across as support. So support actually worked really well here for this move up in the VIX. All right, UPB here, optionmillionaires.com. Come join us in the chat room, live audio. You can listen to me all day. Sometimes I talk stocks. Some days I just get on the soapbox and rant and rave about this wonderful economy. And sometimes, if you're lucky, I'll sing a song. Probably not. All right, UPB, everyone have a great weekend. I'll see you in the chat room. Goodbye.